First begin with, I'll introduce myself. My name is Alisha Gurung. I initially started my career as a network engineer for a private telecom company in Bhutan. And then I shifted to, now I work for another telecom company in the country. I also participate in the NOGs held in the country. I love to teach, and that's all about me. So let's begin with system security. So what is security to all of us? Security, it has different meaning to different people. It means different to different people. For an instance, if I say security, for an instance, for end users, security to them would be ensuring that their end devices are secure. If you're an ISP, then infrastructure security would mean a lot to you. So it means different to different people, and it definitely depends on the kind of work one does. So by that, what I mean is, if you are a network engineer, then you have your own security concern. If you are a developer, you'll have your own security concern. If you are a system admin, then you have your own security things to be considered. So it depends on the kind of work one does when it comes to security. And there are different ways of doing security, which in turn again depends on the kind of work one does. And security is a choice, but it's something which needs to be made mandatory. But when I say mandatory, it's again a controversial thing. If you, for an instance, if you are a technical company, or let's say you are an ISP, or any technical field, for them, for people like us, security is a must thing. It has to be made mandatory. But for other thing is getting very popular in India, and it's very controversial. I don't want to get into because I don't know the whole detail about it. But then the fingerprinting and everything that's going on in the country. So are those things meant to be mandatory? So when I talk about security, so those things are controversial, and I don't mean to say that those things need to be mandatory. But what I mean by saying it has to be made mandatory is in the technical field, or in the infrastructure and the application side. So there are basic things to be considered when doing security, and it also depends on what you are doing. And it does, depending on the kind of work one is doing, it does require financial intervention at times, or it can be free. If you're doing if you're doing basic security, then you need not worry about financial intervention. But then if you are a growing company and there are other aspects to be considered, then you need to worry about security, right? So why are we here today? There is a reason why all of us are here today. So it might be possible that for some of you, like our boss might have told, okay, like go attend this thing, the security conference is going on, go and attend it. Or for some of us, it might be because you're interested in it. So there is a reason why all of us are here. So it means that we are related to security in one way or the other. We are interested in security. When I say security, it's very important that you consider the initial, incorporate security policies in everything that you build, and not wait for a time where a data breach happens, and that's only the time when you know that, okay, there was this security loophole in the application. Before that happens, we need to understand and apply security policy to every work that we do. So why secure your systems at first place? So first thing, why we need to secure our system? Why is security so much important to us? Why we talk so much of security is because of the data compromise that happens. So when there is data compromise, it's obvious that there is loss of data, right? So when there is loss of data, especially imagine you're a bank and losing your customer database, or even losing your customers' money, it incurs huge loss on the bank. So for a company like, especially a financial institution, it's a huge loss. So one thing we need to worry about security is the data compromise. The other thing is because of the loss of data integrity that comes along with, that comes because of the data compromise that has happened, especially for a big organization. Let's consider the latest Facebook data breach that everyone is aware of, and it was so popular, right? So Facebook data breach, what happened was, Facebook had tough time gaining user trust, and so many things were going on in the news saying that Facebook had to, like the CEO of the Facebook had to do interview and so many things. So in the process of doing that, apart from the mental trauma that you go through, you also indirectly go through financial loss because of that. So data compromise, loss of data integrity is the other reason, and the unavailability of the resources that happens because of the data compromise. So based on a Ponemon Institute study which was done in 2012, it was stated that average amount of downtime following a DDoS attack is 54 minutes. And average cost of 1 minute of downtime due to DDoS attack is $22,000. So imagine that happening to a big organization or your company. So it's a huge loss, right? So because of that, we need to worry about security. So even the spam host attack that happened a few years back, and then the WannaCry virus that broke out in 2017. So research said that the total loss that WannaCry virus brought to the companies, it was around $4 billion. So imagine that happening to any one of us. So before that happens, we need to worry about security and think about security from the beginning before you start doing things. So we need to worry about security. So when I say about security, so how does the attacker attack, and how does those data breach happens? What are the points of attack that that's possible? So first and foremost is the human resource. So when I say human resource, what I mean by human resource is nothing but the employees working for any organization. It is possible that attacker might manipulate any one of the employees, and then, or knowingly or unknowingly, the employee of the company, if he or she is the administrator, he or she might land up giving away very crucial passwords via social engineering techniques. He or she might receive text, SMS, or an email saying, can you please change the password for this device, or can you please change the email address for my email ID? And the employee might respond back like changing, okay, I have changed the password. And we never know if it's a genuine user or if it's a genuine user or not. So it's very, as an admin, it's very important to make sure that we don't do those mistakes. And the other one is the physical layers. So physical devices. So it's important that when you have your servers installed, your routers installed, or any of your application server installed, as an admin, we should be aware how accessible are those devices. Can anyone just go into your server room and just plug out a cable, and is there a way to monitor that? Can anybody just walk into your server room, or are there ways to monitor it? What are the tools to monitor it? Do you have some sort of access mechanism, cards or system installed, so that in case worst thing happens, you know who did what? And the other one is the network level. So when it comes to network level, it can be because, for network engineers, it could be because of the software bugs, or it could be because of the configuration mistakes or the network design flaws. And when it comes to the application level, software level, or the server that you're building, it could be because of, again, the same things, software bugs, configuration mistakes, lack of encryption. So these are the attack points that like attackers go through. If they find, like, if they come across any software bugs or configuration mistakes in your application or in your design, then that's the point of attack for the attackers. So what are the types? I've listed a few of them. What are the types of attack that can happen? What are those attacks? So one is the network attack. So when I say network attack, it can be from within the network and from other outside of a network as well. So, and the other one is the social engineering. So this is also one way of attack. Like I mentioned before, social engineering is it's the most simplest form of attack, where an attacker can message or by some means try to get hold of the admin of the company, network admin, system admin, get hold of the admin and then manipulate them to give them their password. Manipulate as in, they might just message you or email you asking for the password, and you might land up giving away the password. So that's one form of attack. The other one is the phishing attacks. So in phishing attacks, how many of us are developers over here? I think many. So I'm sure many of you over here are aware of this phishing attacks. So in phishing attack, it's nothing but attacker tries to get hold of your credential. They try to get, especially they try to get hold of your. It's mainly for your account details or for your credit card information, and it happens by simply sending you a spam mail, and you land up clicking that, and then you land up giving all your information. So that's one form of attack, and other is the DDoS attack that happens. So DDoS attack, when it's nothing but when an attacker attacks your system, and it sends you so many queries that even when a legitimate queries is coming to your server, you land up breaking that, and then you stop responding to the legitimate queries that are coming to you, and your system breaks down, right? Because your system doesn't have the capacity to answer query to all those things. So DDoS attack, it can be, for instance, it can be compared to a simple traffic jam. So people living in Bangalore, I'm sure many of us are aware of the traffic jam that happens. So let's imagine that there is this normal road going, and then there is a sideway road coming in. So if you all are drivers, then you know that people driving in the main lane are supposed to drive, it's the main road, like they have the first right. But if you have some small road coming in, some pathway, and if vehicles start entering in, it will hamper the main road as well. Then it becomes difficult for the cars in the main lane to travel. So it can be compared, that can be compared to a DDoS attack. So amplification attack, it's similar to DDoS, but here the attacker increases the packet size, and it brings down the system again. So before going to the next slide, so why does attack happen? Why is it so, why do we keep hearing about hacking or so many things, viruses, malwares? Why do we think that happens? So it happens, attack happens because people are interested in money. Some are interested in just trying out things. Some do it for revenge, like ex-employee who is having grudge on his company. So he or she might land up doing that. I have a experience with that kind of attack. I don't want to name where and how it happened, but I got to hear it from a friend, where the employee had resigned, and the network administrator forgot to remove his credential from the routers, and he was working. That employee went and he worked for a competitor company. So when my friend, after it was months and months, after when he logged into the router system, he could see that the actual the credential from an ex-employee was logged in, and then he was trying to copy the configuration, and he was trying to do whatnot. So that way, it's very important. Those minute things are very important, because we forget, if an employee leaves, at times we forget to remove those credentials, but it becomes so crucial, and it's something small, but then it will have bigger impact if we don't think about those things. So this is a very interesting slide. I really love this one. So it was shared by Jeff Moss in Nanox 60 keynote presentation. And the reason that he gives as to why attack happens. was nation states want secrets, organized criminals want money, protesters or activists want attention, hackers and researchers want knowledge, and that's the reason why attack happens. And I find it very true, and I really love this, and I wanted to share this with you all. So this is the reason why attack happens. So if there are so many attacks happening, what are the ways to secure it? In general, there are many ways of doing security, like I mentioned in my first slide. So the simple ones, like it's physical security, like I was saying, physical, who all are having access to your server room? Do you have some access mechanism to your server room, or can someone just walk into your server room, and even if someone changes cable or plugs out something, you won't be aware of it? It's very important, because nowadays especially ISPs and all our data centers are coming with that mechanism. But if it's for a country like Bhutan, which is still developing country, those things are new. But then even we have started making those things mandatory. So it's important that you have that card access system. And then malware prevention and removable media. When I say those 2 points, security is not just meant for people at the higher level, or people having huge technical knowledge, or people who are like real engineers. It's not that way. When we talk about security, it's important that you train employees at the lowest, from the lowest level, and then teach them about security. It can be, someone not having an engineering degree. He or she can be a simple staff working in the company, but he needs to be aware of the security. He or she needs to know what's malware, and how will that affect the organization as a whole. It's important to consider all those things. We need to teach them about the consequences that these things are going to bring. And then other is the physical and software monitoring. You can have, for instance, a CCTV outside your server room, so that you can monitor who is going in, or even inside your server room, so you know who is accessing what in case something happens. Or software monitoring for your application server routers. You can have a syslog or LibreNMS. Those are free and open source, and we can have that installed so that we can monitor accordingly. And identify what's most important thing to you in your company, and invest it accordingly. Identify loopholes. What I mean by this is, one can train employees for ethical hacking. So when employees are aware of ethical hacking, we can work in a team, or it can be between 2 people, and what we can do is we can try and hack into the other system that one is working on. That way we will be aware of the loopholes that is there in the other system. So those are the basic things that are to be considered. And maintain standard operating systems, security goals and policy, and delegate it to all. So when you talk about security, those are the basic things. Before you do anything, these things need to be there. So how do you go for making security goals and policy? So there are ways of doing it. So firstly, identify the threats for your system. If you have a server, identify what are the threats associated with. There can be many threats. Temperature could be one, or like, is it if you keep your server, if it's in a dusty area, if it's in a dirty area, it's going to be polluted, and at the end it's going to hamper the performance. So it's important to consider that thing, and identify the vulnerabilities associated with that. Vulnerabilities, it can be software bug or any design flaws, and identify the risk factors associated with each vulnerabilities, and weigh down and prioritize, so that you know how to work when any compromise happens. And plan or make a security goal, or follow security standards like ISO, but that's expensive. The company that I'm working for, we tried to go for ISO, but it was very, very expensive. But then there are companies and organizations who go for these standards, and then but it's mandatory to have a simple security goal for a company, for a division, and for the work that you are going to do. And then always make sure that whenever you are making a security goal for certain thing, always consider the worst case scenario for that. So when making your security goals, what should it include? User privileges as in, we can also include who is allowed to access what part of the network, or password policy. It's important that each one of us have a password policy. And the network security, protecting information in transit. Do you want to encrypt, or do you want it to be in plain text, or ensuring network availability, the network downtime that I was talking about, network reachability, and intrusion detection and prevention. You need to have those things in place so that you know if something is going wrong, you know if some you know bad activities is going on. And then Shamim will be talking about that in the afternoon as to how can we detect all those things. And after we detect all those things, how do we deal with that? What are the measures to be taken? So that comes under incident management. So these things are to be considered. So now, how do we determine our security goals? First thing is, these three things are the most important ones which will help you make a security goal for the work that you're doing. The services offered versus security provided, ease of use versus security, cost of security versus risk of loss. So consider that you want to do web hosting for your customers, and you want to plan security goals accordingly. So services offered versus security provided. Now, what you need to consider is, do you want to do just simple web hosting for your customers, or do you want to give in some other additional services along with that? Do you want to like do FTP? Do you want to do like give mail? Because it's normal when you do web hosting, you give mail hosting to customers as well. So do you want to give that? And if you want to give that, what are the security risks that you need to consider? Do you want things to be encrypted, or do you want it to be plain text? All these things need to be considered. How do you want to provide all those services? And the other is the ease of use versus security. So now, do you want SSH login for each one of your customers, or you want them to access from a certain network, and or do you want SSH to be just normal SSH, or you want to use public key cryptography there so that you can have a proper mechanism in place? So that thing needs to be considered. You need to note down that thing. And then the cost of security versus risks of loss. So once you have all those things in place, what you need to consider is, there are so many open source web hosting platforms available. So do you want to go for those things? Depending on the kind of customers you would be getting, do you want to go for that? Or do you want to buy a web hosting product, pay them annually, and then you need not worry about security? They will be taking care of things. Do you want it that way? So you need to weigh down which is more. You need to prioritize, and you need to maintain your, make your security goals accordingly. So that's how one can make security goal for a particular division, or it can go down to the kind of project that you're working on. Before you do that project, it's important that you write down all those things and have a proper document, and then delegate to each and every one of the employees, or every one of the employees involved in the project or the division, so that they know in case data breach happens, or how do you deal with that. So things become easier. So this was the one that I was talking about. So these are the basic security that I've written down for applications. So for web, it's important to run your website using port 443, and for that you can either, especially if you're a bank or financial institute, they usually buy SSL certificates, or else you can go for open source. I usually go for Let's Encrypt. It's very popular, and it's easy to use, but then you need to renew your certificate every 3 months. But then you can run a cron job in the server, which will help you renew your certificates after every 3 months. So you need not go and manually renew your certificate. So Let's Encrypt. And scanning of website, there are many tools available as to how you can scan your website. And then you would be, developers would be knowing more about it, and then you would know whether malwares, whether your website is infected, whether you are having the right content or not. And then regular patch update of your web server, as well as the platform that you're using, that you've used to design your websites. So that's important as well. So the other one is the mail. So block port 25. When I don't mean to say go and just block port 25, because if you do that, then you, especially if you're an ISP, then you'll be getting so many complaints from your customers. So I don't mean that you just go and block port 25, but then we as a technical people, we need to train our customers or employees in general about what port 25 can do, because it's the port which spammers use to send spams, and this is the main cause why IPs get blacklisted, right? So we need to educate, first and foremost thing is we need to educate our customers as to what it can do, because no matter what, because I've experienced this, what we did was, without informing customers, we said, okay, this is not secure, so we just went and blocked port 25. So what happened was, especially from those people who were taking lease line, from especially the hotel people, all of them were using mail on port 25, and we had tough time. And then we had to slowly, like, first we allowed them, but then we educated them, and slowly all of them moved to the secure mail. And then when it comes to this port thing, I wanted to share one very interesting thing. It's not much to do with mail. What happened was, we have our upstream providers. We don't want to name which upstream provider, but when I was working for my previous company, I got a complaint, my CEO complained saying that he was not able to send mail from a certain particular part of the world. And I do it from different network, it was working. And then when I checked, when we had tough time because mails were not getting delivered, the reason that happened was our upstream provider blocked UDP 53 for our network. That was the reason. Whenever we were switching, whenever we were going for other upstream provider, we were able to send mails, but when it was going by the other upstream provider, mails were getting rejected. So it's important, filters are important. And go for email encryption. And then SMTP, we must use authenticated SMTP. And then there are ways to do authenticated SMTP, and must keep attackers from spamming your users and from using you to spread spam, because that's how spamming happens. And as a normal user, it's important that you check your email headers. It's a small thing, but it really helps you in long term. And DNS, these are the basic things that needs to be considered. Make sure you are not running open recursive server unless that's what you really want. There are online tools available where you can go and then type your resolver address, and if you're not sure of the configuration that you have done, then there are tools available. You can go and search for like open recursive server checking tool, and then you can just give in your resolver address, and it will tell you whether you're running an open recursive server or not. So, and proper ACL, whenever in DNS there is master and slave server, so make sure that the correct slave server is getting the information from the master server, so that make sure that you have proper ACL in place. And then use transaction signature for zone transfer. Transaction signatures along with ACL is the best option, so make sure that you are using that. And enable DNSSEC and sign your zone to prevent cache poisoning. Rate limiting, the DDoS attack that I was talking about. So in that case, this rate limiting really helps you, because if the DNS finds that same query is coming within short span of time, it just drops down the query and then it goes to the next one. So rate limiting really helps you fight those things. And then software and OS patch updates. Software updates of the DNS server that you're running on, and also the application that you're using to run your DNS. It can be Power DNS, Bind, whatever your like. Bind is the most popular one, and I mostly work with Bind. So so it's important that you have regular patch update, and as an administrator, subscribe yourself to security forums and everything, so that you know whenever things, whenever a virus or something breaks down, or whenever there is a new patch update, you get an email and you are notified about all those things. So lastly, what I want to say is, security, it's not that only people at the higher level should be aware of it, but then start incorporating security from the beginning, and in the application level, that you, before doing something, think about security. That's what I want to tell you all. That's it.
Thank you, Alisha.